背負い投げ In 背負い投げ, you grasp one side of your opponent's collar and put your elbow underneath his arm as you lift and throw him over your shoulder. Here, you grasp your opponent's sleeve as well as one side of his collar. This 背負い投げ was applied after stepping out wide to the side. It's a variation of 背負い投げ and not a 体落とし. This 背負い投げ was applied just with an upward lift of the right hand. He did not grasp his opponent's sleeve. Here he grasped one side of his opponent's collar. A 背負い投げ executed from a low position. Ippon 背負い投げ In 一本背負い投げ, you hold and control one of your opponent's arms as you lift and throw him over your shoulder. When applying an 一本背負い投げ, you can also step out wide to the side of your opponent's right foot. An 一本背負い投げ applied as if wrapping your opponent's body around you. An 一本背負い投げ applied with your arm turned. Let's look at some examples of 一本背負い投げ in competition.
Seoi otoshi. Seoi otoshi is a throwing technique where you take your opponent on your back and pull him straight down. As you throw, you can do so either with one knee or both knees on the floor. Seoi otoshi, moving from an ippon seoi nage position. In seoi nage, you throw your opponent by lifting him over, but in seoi otoshi, you throw him by pulling him down over you. Seoi otoshi on both knees. Whether it's seoi nage or seoi otoshi is decided by whether your opponent was lifted or pulled over. This is seoi nage with both knees on the floor. We judge so because after going down on both knees, the throw was made by raising the hip and hoisting the opponent's frame.
He kneels on his right foot to execute the throw.
Tai Otoshi. There are various ways of executing Tai Otoshi depending on the situation. This is Tai Otoshi executed by drawing the opponent out. This is a tailing Tai Otoshi, executed the moment the opponent moves his leg back. In this Tai Otoshi, the opponent has been drawn out sideways. There are cases where Tai Otoshi is executed by grabbing one side of the collar. Double motion Tai Otoshi. It was executed first of all by lightly kicking the inside of the opponent's foot to make him lose balance. In another instance, you might cross your opponent's arms when executing the throw. By twisting your opponent's arms, his body goes off balance and his resistance is stopped.
Let's look at some examples of Tai Otoshi in competition. This Tai Otoshi started out as an uchimata.
Kataguruma. Kataguruma is a technique in which you haul your opponent up above you as you throw. As you can see, the throw is generally made by throwing your opponent down toward the tip of your foot. In Kataguruma, the throw can be made in any number of directions after you raise your opponent up. In this case, the opponent is thrown directly in front. It appears that this kind of throw was often used in the early days of modern judo. In this kataguruma, the body of the opponent is raised up high, and the throw is then made by bending backwards. The direction of the throws may differ, but these are all considered kataguruma, and the effect of the throw is recognized. Here you enter low on one knee, raise your opponent up and throw him down. Ukiotoshi. The tori, or active partner, pulls the uke, or passive partner, forward, goes down on one knee and pulls him down in front. The aim of practicing kata, or form, is to make students realize the principle behind the technique. In ukiotoshi, you sometimes step in the moment your opponent steps forward with his left foot, then execute your throw by pulling him off balance to one side of you. When your right hand is grasping the middle of the sleeve like this, you can force him to go off balance by pushing up on his elbow. Have another look. Dodging your opponent's osotogari by pulling back your leg, turn aside and then throw. This is also ukiotoshi. Sumiotoshi. Sumiotoshi is a throwing technique in which you shake your opponent off balance into the rear corner, then throw him by thrusting him down. Using your right hand, you pull up your opponent by grasping his left collar. You make your opponent lose balance by causing him to raise his left foot and shift his weight to his right heel. In another instance, you shift your grip from his left collar to the middle of his sleeve. You then push his elbow up to make him lose balance. Sumiotoshi and ukiotoshi make up a pair. Let's now look at the difference between sumiotoshi and ukiotoshi. In sumiotoshi, you push and throw your opponent down to the rear. In ukiotoshi, you pull and throw your opponent down to the front. The direction of off-balancing and throwing your opponent differs. Sumiotoshi was one of the favorite techniques of Kyuzo Mifune, the 10th Dan. Pay close attention to the principle of the technique, where you force your opponent's left foot to come forward and throw him down in a backward direction. Tsukui Nage. In a tournament, the technique of placing a hand underneath your opponent's thigh and lifting him up is often used. When your opponent tries a harai goshi, you should pull your foot back to open yourself up for an attack, then put your hand in from behind your opponent to lift him up and throw him down. Similarly, when your opponent comes at you with an osotogari, then you should again put your hand in from behind and throw. Again, when he attempts an uchimata, you can evade his motion, then putting your hand in from behind, transform it into a sukui nage. On occasion, you may throw using your hips as you lift your opponent. This time, the opponent is lifted by putting a hand in from the front. When your opponent tries osotogari, pull your foot back, then as you do so, put your hand in from the front and lift him up.
A dynamic sukuinage. It looks like a morotegari, but since she merely lifted and dropped her opponent with both hands, it's a sukuinage. A morotegari is when you reap your opponent's legs towards you with both hands and throw him directly to the rear.
Obi otoshi. Obi otoshi can be considered a kind of sukuinage. It is one of the techniques of jujutsu, the traditional martial art. Grasp the front part of your opponent's belt. Push him directly back to cause him to lose balance, lift him from the side and throw him down towards the rear. The principle of obi otoshi is very much like that of sukuinage. Obi otoshi is hardly ever used in modern tournaments, but is one of the techniques used in free exercises of Kodokan judo. Morotegari. Morotegari is often used in a competition. There are different ways of starting morotegari. In this case, you catch your opponent the moment you come to grapple with him. This is morotegari, where you first pull your opponent forward. In this case, seoi nage turns into a morotegari. When you attempt seoi nage, your opponent will react by bending backwards. Morotegari is then performed without a pause. In following on from a seoi nage, you sometimes make one complete turn, as you can see here.
This is a morotegari.
Kuchiki daoshi. Kuchiki daoshi is a technique in which you take your opponent's leg and push him down backwards. It's often used in a tournament. You push your opponent down by taking hold of his leg, but sometimes it's executed from the inside as well as from the outside. This is a follow-on technique starting from kataguruma. A kataguruma is attempted, but as your opponent defends himself by shifting his weight backwards, the throw is made by grasping his leg from inside. This time we start with the opponent's osotogari. When the opponent attacks with osotogari, defend yourself by opening up, turning sideways. As you do so, catch him from inside his legs to make him fall. Here you down your opponent by catching his leg from outside. When you perform kouchigari, your opponent counters by raising the foot that's been swept from the side. Grasp his leg from outside at that moment to make him fall. This time continuing from ouchigari. The moment your opponent raises his foot to counter the move, you catch his leg from outside to drop him.
A dazzling kuchiki daoshi executed with speed. This kuchiki daoshi started out as an uchimata.
Kibis gaeshi. Kibis gaeshi is a technique in which you fell your opponent by taking hold of his heel. There are two ways of performing kibis gaeshi. Either by grasping the inside of your opponent's heel, or by grasping the outside. First make seoi nage, then turn once to face your opponent to follow on to kibis gaeshi. First, grasping your opponent's heel from outside. Catch your opponent's heel from outside as he tries to withdraw, then cut him down by pushing with your left hand. In the following case too, you grasp the heel from outside. From kochigari, you make your opponent fall by taking the heel of the raised foot from outside. Let's compare techniques. In kuchiki daoshi, you push your opponent down by putting your hand on his leg. In kibis gaeshi, you grasp your opponent's heel and cut him right down on the spot.
Reap your opponent's heel with one hand and throw her.
Kochigaeshi. In kochigaeshi, you dodge your opponent's kochigari, then drop him by twisting to either right or left. When your opponent attacks with a kochigari, you evade by raising the foot that's been struck, then make a throw by twisting him to the left. This time, twisting to the right. Look closely at how you evade the attack and how you make the twist. This is Deashi. Uchimata Sukashi. When your opponent attacks with uchimata, you move your right foot back, turn and twist. The opponent, losing his target, will only hit empty air and fall, drawing a large arc as he does so. Occasionally, you may raise one of your feet up high to dodge the attack. This also is an application of uchimata sukashi.
In uchimata sukashi, you use your opponent's momentum to throw him forward. It's a tewaza or hand technique.
Yama Arashi. Shiro Saigo, the sixth Dan, is considered to be the model of the hero of the novel Sanshiro Sugata. Though small in stature, his fierce performance won him the praise. There were no Yama Arashi to speak of before or after Saigo. Yama Arashi is performed by grasping your opponent's collar and sleeve on the same side, lifting him up as in Harai Goshi, then dropping him using the hip. With your right hand placed inside the collar of your opponent, with the thumb inside, push against his right chest. Push your opponent down. Then, just as he tries to raise himself, jump in and throw him. The foot movement is similar to that of Harai Goshi. Your toes should be put close to your opponent's ankle as you brush it upwards. Simultaneously, lift with the right hand while brushing upwards with the right foot, then throw in a large motion upwards.